Welcome to a special episode of NR International. This is Mr. Make It Rain, Nald Rainey, and
Flawless Flaw. Peace, love.
we are in the building today with a man who I salute in many ways for having the courage to do and embark upon missions in which many people within this day and age obviously are either too cowardly to do, to speak about things in which people of this particular time period may not have the heart to. And he actually goes out and encourages and teaches people about the things in which they need to know to correct our generation. This particular generation is in need of help. And the person who I'm referring to is our esteemed guest, Dr. Umar Johnson.
Peace and black power. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here, family.
Peace, love, and blessings. Most definitely. It's an honor to have you in the building, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
We also have my brother Kawi in the building.
Thank you, man.
And definitely salute to everyone who's here on the check-in, everyone who's tuned in from Philadelphia, New York, LA, North Carolina, Texas, and so
All over the world.
all over the world.
We appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Buenos días a todos los hispanos. Bom dia a todos los portugueses. مساء الخير لكل عربي and everyone else. Salute. This is NR International. It's global, never local, and only international counts.
Most authentic on the airwaves.
Most authentic on the airwaves. Now, I definitely would like to say, Dr. Umar,
Yes, sir.
many people, right? Many people of this day and age, they speak about blackness and they speak about trying to do for self and trying to put situations together that's going to affect and help our people.
Yes, sir.
But somewhere along the lines, though, it's like there's a disconnect where it's like we can only get but a certain percentage of people to actually wake up and say, I have to change something. Like, I have children. I'm taking them to these schools. I'm taking them to public schools, or I'm buying into private schools, which based off of, the Catholics had that on lock for a long time. Then following up with those, the Jewish schools, which no one other than Jews can enter into. The Islamic schools began to open. And today we're trying to have a school that is based off of blackness.
Yes, sir.
And you find so much opposition to that. Why do you think that is?
Well, number one, I think that general opposition is due to the fact that if we are successful with this school, building it independently, it will automatically shine a light on a lot of brothers and sisters within the Black conscious movement and the community as a whole. And that light will say that if he can do it, why can't you guys? If I'm able to succeed, then you automatically start looking at your athletes and entertainers. And you say, well, if he can do it, why can't you guys do it? So I think some people have a vested interest in seeing us fail so that they're not held more accountable. It only takes one person to break through. Now, this isn't the first, independent school that we've had in the country, but it will be the first of its kind. And because of who I am and what the school will stand for, it's never been seen before. It's never been done this particular way.
About it, and there's no puppet master behind it.
Yes, sir.
I had a conversation with a brother maybe a few months ago, and he was into doing the exact same thing. And when it was asked, within that conversation of, well, why is it that y'all do it on an independent note? The topic that came up was that anything in which the government puts their hands into, they feel as though they can control.
Absolutely.
And they can put it into.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And it's like, if we recognize, for all those that's listening, that we are able to change the course of our futures, and we can be able to build for our own communities, and we can be able to make sure and ensure and secure that our children aren't, one, socially engineered, two, that they come up without any type of trauma, right? Which that's the first part that I feel as though we have to shake. We have to shake the fact that most of us have grown up with some type of trauma that unfortunately we pass on, almost like the
genetically.
What was it,
Indeed, we do.
What was the name of the movie with Fisher, the Fisher story, where Antoine Fisher, where it's almost as though because hurt people, we come from an environment where most of us have been hurt, and so we don't even realize when we're passing on that type of toxicity to the next generation. We don't realize when we're passing on the negative aspects of what we came up with, and we're passing it down to the next.
And it becomes their norm.
It becomes their norm, and they have to be able to figure that part out.
And this is the dysfunctional cycle. And talking about dysfunctional cycles and the psyche of people, Dr. Umar Johnson, I know you are very, very not only knowledgeable, but you're credible to be speaking on these topics. And due to the work that you've put in, thank you, you've made and shared knowledge that we would not have had about our children, about ourselves. And for those who may have missed that, I just would like for you to briefly talk about certain assumptions or presumptions that we have following the mass that is not.
Okay. What area? Politically, the school system?
More so like school and the cycle part, ADHD and things in which people give us. You realize, like, as children, growing up, trying to learn, when you're told you are something and you're made to believe something for so long, it's damaging, especially when growing up in a society where every time you go outside, you see that you're not wanted. You see that it's a defamation not only to your character, not only to your people, but to your mental state. We're being suppressed in so many ways, whether it's subliminally, whether it's what we see on TV, but we're also made to think and believe certain things about ourselves that is not true, or where the truth has been altered to only have us, even when we do shoot for goals, we can only reach that glass ceiling.
I would start off by saying that I think black people live in an eternal state of denial. And I say that because it doesn't make sense that we ever trusted the United States government to properly educate our children, given our shared experience in this country. What evidence did we have to suggest that they would properly or fairly educate our children? We didn't have any. I always say that white supremacy has been consistent. We're the ones who have been inconsistent. Sometimes we want to be American, sometimes we want to be black, sometimes we want to be both, sometimes we want to fight, sometimes we want to give in, sometimes we want our own reality, sometimes we want to share reality with the Europeans. We have not yet made up our minds as to what exactly we want to do here. 400 years and we're still not clear on where we want to go, who we want to be, and what we want to do. So bringing that into the school system, the purpose of public education for black children is to teach them how to be supporters of the very same system that is exterminating them. The purpose of school is to teach the black child to accept white supremacy as a divine assignment. So I always say that your child may not know how to read, but they know white people are in control. They might don't know how to count, but they know who George Washington was, who Alexander Hamilton, Abraham Lincoln. You understand? They are taught to worship American culture, and by doing so, to worship the white man and the white woman. If public school does nothing else, it turns the black child into a Negro. It makes the free black mind an encaged black mind. And after 12 years of that, once again, black people spend the rest of their child's life trying to bring them back to consciousness after you've allowed white people 13 years to indoctrinate and to train and to hypnotize, because public education is a mass hypnotism. It is a mass hypnotism. You are not under the influence of truth. You're not even under the influence of information, because you're not learning anything. You're under the influence of the mysticism of white supremacy. And some of us will never wake up from that slumber until the day that we die. Now, specifically going in, you look at the school to prison pipeline. And with that, America has created 6 stages of destruction for black males. Stage number 1 is deliberate miseducation. And it's important that we understand that it's deliberate, because growing up here in North Philadelphia, my first school was Duckery Elementary at 16th and Diamond. I graduated from Meade Elementary at 18th and Oxford. And then middle school was at Bieber Junior High, 59th and Malvern out in West Philly, Winfield. The school district of Philadelphia, as an example, would have you think that the children are not learning because the fathers are locked up, the mothers are on welfare, because the teachers are underpaid, and because the school district is underfinanced. That has nothing to do with it. The schools don't work because it is a contradiction of white supremacy to teach black boys how to compete fairly with white boys. Under white supremacy, the white male must be privileged. The white female must be privileged. So if they're going to be privileged, you must intentionally disadvantage the black child in order for the white child to succeed. This is one of the reasons why standardized testing is so important in America, because the tests that they give our children are designed to produce a false negative for black children and a false positive for whites. In other words, there's a built-in 15-point test score difference, whether you're dealing with the IQ test, whether you're dealing with the PSSA, whether you're dealing with the graduation test, whether you're dealing with any test they give us. Because the tests are standardized on white children, the standardization method dictates that 50% of most white kids will pass it. We need to understand this, because we keep hearing these conversations about test scores and why can't black kids catch up? Because you designed the test to make sure they don't. Now, that's a general statement. Some people would say, prove that. How can you tell me that they are able to manipulate the test? Well, let's look at what standardization is. Standardization is the process of making a test normal and relevant to the children you're going to give it to, right? So if we want to create a standardized test for Philadelphia, we're going to take white kids, black kids, Chinese, Latino, Mexican. We're going to take rich. We're going to take poor. We're going to take kids with one parent, kids with two parents, kids who dropped out, kids who completed, right? And we're going to test the test before we give out the official test. Every test was already tested. Let me say that one more time. Every test your child takes was already given to them before. Maybe not to your child, but to another child, your child's age, your child's grade, from their socioeconomic status. So they already know how the black kids are going to do. So, for example, we're about to get ready for the PSSA in Philadelphia and across Pennsylvania. Parents are getting their kids ready. They don't know that every item on that test was already tested. They already know how the black kids are going to do. They already know how the white kids are going to do. And based on how we do, that's how they put the final questions into the final test. So if I want white kids to pass, what am I going to do? I'm going to look at the items where white kids did well, black kids struggle. You see that? Exactly. You can re-engineer the test where the black kids do better than the white kids. Just find the items where the black kids do better and the white kids do less well. So here's the question. If there was ever a test where the black children outperform the white children, what do you think happens to that test? It gets destroyed. You will never see it again, because it contradicts the core belief of white supremacy, and that is that their children are better than ours. Sometimes I'll get questions from parents. Can you recommend a IQ test that is not culturally biased? Can you recommend an achievement battery assessment that is not culturally biased? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because every test in America is culturally biased by design. So I'm bringing it up to let you know that nothing in the world of education is left to chance. It's not like the NBA finals, which some people could argue is rigged too, right? But we know for a fact testing is rigged, you see. And in keeping with that, so you have deliberate miseducation to make sure the white boy stays privileged. Then you have special ed. Now, special ed is when you go in another level. You say, listen, if we can't break the black boy's spirit just by having a white teacher in the classroom, we're going to test him and label him with something he don't have and that we can't even prove exists. You can't prove a reading disability. You can't prove ADHD. You can't prove conduct disorder. You can't prove an emotional disturbance. You can't prove a mild intellectual disability. And most of our children, these are the 5 labels that they use. You see, you can't prove it. But guess what? We believe it can be proven. And so just by the white psychologists testing your children, and in Philadelphia, most of the school psychologists are white, I know, because I used to be one of them. Just by using those tests, they can convince and convict a black parent to believe that your son can't learn without this program. They never tell you that this program is a fast track to the school to prison pipeline. They never tell you by putting him in special ed, he's more likely to drop out of school. They never tell you that the gap between him and other children can get wider over time. They never tell you that. So then after that, then they go to medication. So now we're talking ADHD conduct disorder, which is going to get you a Ritalin prescription, Adderall, Concerta, Metadate, Vyvanse. Now you're taking the same drugs that locked your father up. So let me get this straight. My father's doing 20 years for selling crack because y'all say it's bad. And it is. But you're going to take that same crack that daddy sold, call it Ritalin, Adderall, Concerta, and you're going to give me 10 milligrams of that every day so I can sit still long enough to learn about Christopher Columbus, Ann Keller, Anne Frank, and Helen Keller. You see the contradiction. If drugs are too bad to be sold, they must definitely be too bad to be given to children. And so we're witnessing a mass crack epidemic that's being pushed through the school district with black parents' complicity and with the authority of the white supremacy power structure. The drugging of black boys for education is one of the greatest contradictions of American drug policy.
Doc, can I'm sorry to catch you off.
Nah, you're good, bro.
You was going in, and first I want to say thank you for being here. I learned a lot from you, whether you know it or not, because you don't even know me. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to speak on the ADD, ADHD thing. My son's 4 years old. He's not diagnosed with anything like that. But I go to his class. The teacher tells me he's acting up. I tell him, this is what it's going to be. I tell his teacher, I'm not going to allow you to diagnose my son with ADD, ADHD, none of that. My son does go to a private school. It is in a predominantly white neighborhood. Okay. But I do that on purpose. Not to say that white people get better education, but to say that I would not allow my son to go to a public school in Philadelphia where they close down 24 schools and go to new juvenile jail. I won't allow my son to do that. But I say that to say, you already see, like, my son's 4, he'll be going to kindergarten at 4. I will not allow him to make my son wait till 6 to go to kindergarten. That's not an option. Because we all know as black men, as black people, that you try twice as hard as everybody else to get where you at.
Absolutely.
So you can't put my son a year back because of his birthday. Not going to be an option. That's another reason why he goes to private school, so he can start kindergarten early. But everything you're speaking on, I work in psych. I'm going to say that I work in psych. I work with adolescents. I work in drug and alcohol. I work in the corrections as a nurse. I'm a nurse. I work in corrections as a nurse. So everything you're talking about, I've seen that. I worked in the juvenile justice center right after it got built, not the old one, the new one. So I seen that. I just want to say that I don't even, I'm real excited right now, so I don't want to get into it. But everything you said, I've seen it. I have a kid. I work with kids currently. I work in drug and alcohol. I work in psych. So I definitely, everything you said is 100. Like,
I'll tell you this in response to that. So the work I do is to try to get the children out of special ed, to educate the parents to not put them in the first place, because this is where we get caught. They can't make you put your child in, but they can force you to keep them in. They can't make you put them on medicine. They can force you to keep them on the medicine. Prevention is the best intervention. Once you're in, they got you. See, if they tell you your son can't sit still, he's too hyper to learn, right? They can't force the medicine until you get him tested. Now, once he gets the ADHD classification, that's all they need. Now they on the phone downtown, Child Protective Services, DHS, and now DHS is coming to you and your wife threatening to take all the children away from you because you have a child with a health problem that you don't want to medicate. Now, let me say this.
one thing I don't like about the world of mental health, it's treated the equivalent of physical health. Right. So, for example, if you got cancer, we can prove you got cancer. There's an X-ray, there's an ultrasound, there's pictures. You know cancer. You know diabetes. You know kidney failure. You know heart disease. You can objectively prove them, right? You can't objectively prove a learning disability. There's no test, no CAT scan, no MRI, no urine sample. You can't prove it. But because psychology is a branch of medicine, they treat it the equivalent of physical health. So even though you can't see a learning disability, you can't touch it, can't measure it, they will treat it like it's diabetes, like it's cancer. So when they come to your house, you can't say, well, y'all can't even prove this thing exists. Show me where the learning disability is. Can I see it? You can't. It's a theoretical disability. Right. It's not organic, it's theoretical. But guess what? Because it carries the same swag as cancer, they can take your kids from you because you're not giving them medicine that they need to succeed. Look at that. Look at that.
But that goes back. I don't even know if you remember you said this. I remember I was watching you talk and you said they diagnose your kids with ADD, ADHD, all of that, ain't got no daddy at home syndrome. Absolutely. Right? So that goes back to that. So it's even if your kid don't got no daddy at home, which like you said, that's what we're gonna call it, right? They diagnose your kid because your kid won't sit still because they don't have no structure at home, right? So when you start going to school and picking your kid up and the teacher say, man, your kid was in class hitting people, throwing stuff at people, not listening, running around, can't sit still, can't repeat back the lessons that I taught them, you got to be harder on your kid.
Yes. Because harder on the teacher.
Harder on the teacher as well. You got to be harder on the teacher, but my son's teacher is black, I'm going to say that. My son's teacher is black, older lady, nice woman, but anyway. You have to be hard on the kid, but specifically for that specific situation, you have to show the kid that the teacher is the authoritative figure in that classroom at that moment.
Yes.
You understand? I'm just going on based on what I know.
Yes, I agree.
You have to show the kid that teacher is the authoritative figure. So when you go to school and pick that kid up, you can't say, yo, don't talk to my kid like that. Don't my kid do what we want? Because a lot of us have that attitude. No. You walk in the classroom and the teacher say, look, such and such was in here doing this, running around, won't sit down, whatever, throwing stuff, hitting people. Come here, let me talk to you for a second. You see this? Miss such and such? You follow what she said. You don't be a follower, you be a leader, but you listen to what she say. Whatever she say, you do. You be a listener. You do that, you get to the teacher. Look, if you're a good parent, you work with your kid at home. So you know what it takes for that child to listen, for that child to learn, for that child to want to interact. So you go to the teacher, look, my son, he don't do that like that. That's not how that works.
Right.
This works for him.
I agree. I'm going to add one small caveat.
Go ahead.
One of the problems with black boys and white teachers is there's no social justice protocol in this public school. If your son is being mistreated by his teacher, there is no process he can follow to get justice. If she's calling him out his name, if she's being unfair to him, if she's labeling him out, if she's criminalizing him, the problem is the black boy is forced to carry this pain of injustice with him. Right. You can't take the teacher to court. Right. You see, and so that is what mushrooms into this conduct disorder, which I call Caucasian disorder. That's really what it is because you're not allowing me to express myself and say how I feel about the way you're treating me. So the teacher serves as judge, jury, and executioner. You see, so the classroom in many respects can resemble a prison in structure and in process. Facts. I totally agree with you. Facts. But your son has a good teacher. You follow what I'm saying? Who is black. You follow? But when you're dealing with the notorious Neanderthals that run these classrooms with the iron fist, many of these teachers carry themselves like police officers, not teachers, and definitely not caregivers. There are very few teachers I've seen in a school that I can say this is a caregiver. You follow me? They walk around like probation officers. To that end, if we want to fix education for black boys, the simplest, easiest, most convenient thing to do is to give them strong black male teachers. See, schools are run by women and they operate on feminine energy. 95% of all teachers are females, right? And then white female. So the black boy is discriminated against twice because first he's a boy in a female-dominated institution, but then he's black in a white-dominated institution. You see, so you're looking at gender times racism. So he gets it both, right? So if you want to fix that, just start hiring black men and putting them in charge because women expect boys to act like girls in the classroom. Running is normal for a alpha male child. Talking, goofing off, is normal for a alpha male child, but the school is designed for the female child, and the only boy who can really be successful is the beta male boy, and that's the boy who can sit there and be complacent. But for most of our sons who have an alpha energy, the white female is going to be a problem for him, and because he won't act like a little white girl, now he gets called ADHD.
I want to put just a moment in the schooling and to speak to the parents. Most parents are under the impression that they are doing their child a justice, a service, by putting him into this private school. And being someone who has went to better in schools, you know, because my mother struggled to make it happen for me, and what I experienced in them. You know, I was that little boy that you mentioned that could not express the injustices that I was being faced with on a day-to-day basis. Even to where as though I had teachers, you know, speaking nasty to me. Oh, what kind of book bag that is? That's not fake. Your mom got it on discount. Like nasty on a day-to-day basis. And you being a child, taught to respect your elders, trying to find your niche in life. It's so suppressing to one's soul, to one's expression. And I really believe that with a school that you are working on, everybody needs to acknowledge, right? If you want the best for your people, we need to be around our people. Absolutely. We cannot say, I want the best for my child, so I'm going to send them to an all-white school. You are going to lose your...
Send them to people who have never had the best interests of our people.
Exactly. Like, you're gonna put your child through so much, and your child is going to be unable to open up to you due to the fact that the experiences are different, you know? Ultimately, your child trusts you, right? And you're entrusting people that are taking that trust and damaging it.
Yes.
They're damaging your child.
Yes.
In so many ways. And you're telling your child to trust them. And they deal with this on a day-to-day basis. So whereas though this is what I say when people say this is who you are. You're a bad kid. Oh, you do this. You're a disciplinarian. And you really start to believe these things about you to whereas though you have a F it mentality. Exactly. And you are set in your ways because everybody labels me the outcast anyway, correct? But we need to heal our people. We need to come together. And I really think that part of it is speaking on these experiences, you know, because we've all, young, old, rich or poor, we've had encounters where we've been unjust. We've had racial encounters that has not felt good. And I know all white people love to say, we're always crying about, no, it's not crying. It's the fact that this is a wound. And when you put salt in a wound, it hurts. You understand? Like, we can lean on each other and we understand because we went through similar instances. I always say, you are the strength of the people you have around you. When I cannot be strong, I can lean on this brother. He can be my strength. I can lean on this brother. He can. And as a people, this is how we survive as a nation. This is how we dominate. Melanin is dominant. Listen, just look at genetics. Why do you think they don't want us to unite? The genes say it all.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I always get the question, if black people are already on the bottom, why do they have to continue to add injury to insult? If we're already losing, have so little wealth, so little unity, so little control, why the police genocide? Why the continued miseducation? If you're already losing, why kick us even more? And that's for 3 reasons. The first is your genetic advantage. Okay, I'm not going to use the word superiority, so I'll say your genetic advantage. The black woman is the only woman that walks this earth who reproduces herself irregardless of the man that puts the seed in her. So whether he be Anglo-Saxon, Chinese, Arab, Mexican, that child is African.
Yes.
Same thing with the black man. In fact, when black men were lynched, and they still are occasionally, but when you look at the lynchings during slavery, Jim Crow, post-Reconstruction, 95% of the time they castrated the black male when they lynched them. Now, we were not the only ones to be lynched. They lynched Chinese, They lynched Irish, they lynched Italians, they lynched other Asians that were imported over here to work because they didn't want to hire us, okay? Keeping a black man unemployed has been the modus operandi since the end of slavery. But getting back to the point, they never castrated them. So why was the black man dismembered whenever he was lynched? Because the black man's penis has always been a point of envy for the white male. Unfortunately, many black males misconstrue that to mean that the white man is intimidated by the size of your penis. That's not necessarily true because not every black man is blessed, you understand. It's not the size of the black man's genitalia that infuriates the white male. It's the genetic power that comes from it. The white male knows that the black man will make a black child if he touches his white sister, his white daughter, his white mother. The only child that comes from a black man is a black child. No other man can say that. We are the only men on the planet, no matter how poor we are, no matter how mass incarcerated we are, no matter how disorganized we are the only black man in the world, the only man in the world who can reproduce himself in any woman he touches. They hate you for that. And that's why they got AIDS and Ebola and West Nile and coronavirus and Shanika virus and anything you can think of. It is about exterminating you. And this is where the bourgeois Negroes get it wrong. And by the way, Philly is the capital of the bourgeois Negro. I don't know if y'all know this, but this is historical truth. The Boule, the black male secret society that serves the white male secret society, was founded in Philly, 1904. W.E.B. Du Bois was a member while he was a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. You understand? Philly is the home of the Boule, the original black aristocracy, the original gatekeeper class, the original Negropean was born in Philadelphia. That's why in Philly, we never saw a Trayvon Martin type of riot or a Michael Brown riot or a Freddie Gray. You never got that in Philly, and you never will, because the black community here is thoroughly controlled by its Boule. You see, and so that's why, even though Philadelphia is the only top 10 city where the black population equals the white population, you don't see that reflected in our political and economic power because of the gatekeepers. So if there's any place you want to start to destroy the control that the talented 10th has over the other 90, it's Philadelphia.
The talented 10th. Now that was a gem that was brand new to me right there. I never knew that.
Look it up. BOULE 1904, Philadelphia, the Black Male Secret Society. And this secret society predates all of the Greek lettered fraternities and sororities because they come from the Boule. The Boule created all the fraternities and all the sororities, which is why up until a certain time, you couldn't join none of the fraternities and sororities if you couldn't pass the brown paper bag test. Every fraternity and sorority was a light-skinned supremacy clique until a certain amount of time.
And that's what was said about the Alpha Kappa Alphas before
all of them.
Kappa started.
Now, some of them stayed with the light-skinned mystique, right? But all of them started with it. If you was chocolate, you wasn't getting in. The first recipient of the NAACP Spring Garn Medal was Ernest Everett Just, founder of Omega Psi-Phi.
That's deep right there.
And the power of the secret society and the Negro elite, the power is in the secrecy. You don't know we exist. You don't know we meet. You don't know we plan. You don't know we strategize. It's no different than the upcoming presidential election. Who you going to vote for? Bloomberg, Trump, Biden. It doesn't matter. Because what you fail to realize is many of them are Grandmaster Masons. You fail to realize that they're all members of the Bilderberg. You fail to realize that they're all members of the Council on Foreign Relations. When George W. Bush took on John Kerry, they were both skull and bones. The decision was made before the election even took place. They're playing games with us. There's no democracy. There's only a false-stocracy.
Right.
Indeed.
Corporatocracy at that. Well, look, I need everybody who's listening to this, share on the IG, share on your Facebooks, share these links once it reaches YouTube, share. When it gets to all the different platforms, make sure you share this because this is the gems that everyone needs to know. We can't wake people up without knowledge. So this knowledge is being given right here. This is something on which every person needs to listen to, take heed to. And if you don't get it now, then at least sit on it for a while and you get it later.
Come get the
and let me
soul
also
food.
clarify.
Yes.
because I don't want our black Greek letter fraternities to say Dr. Umar is anti, right?
Okay.
That's not the case. You can understand the history of something and still recognize how some people can still try to use it as an instrument for good. Right. For example, Dr. King was a member of the Boule. You understand? But Dr. King didn't let the Boule keep him back from doing what he needed to do. Okay. You see, same thing with charter schools. Charter schools were not started to help black kids. Philadelphia has more charter schools than any city in America, right? Mm-hmm. And there are some very good black-run charter schools in Philly. So you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, but you cannot withhold the truth because it will upset some people who are involved in that mission. So when I talk about charter schools, I know some black educators in Philly who are probably watching me. They get upset. Stop talking down about the charter schools. We're giving our kids a better chance. Your school is giving our children a better chance. But as a movement, charter schools were created to defund and destroy public education. That's not a knock on the good black charters, but you still need to understand the mission behind the charter school.
It was the original intention.
Original intent.
But talking about schools, right? I would like to know more about
Sure.
this school and how we can help you.
Thank you. With the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, which is in Wilmington, Delaware, we have 4 buildings, which includes 2 schools. Right now, we're trying to get the small renovated. That's the Honorable across the street, and we're going to need more money before we can get that one done, even though that is the one I can't wait to get done because it has everything we need in it. So we're trying to get the Garvey building renovated by the start of summer, because this August is the 100-year anniversary of the Honorable Marcus Garvey's red, black, and green flag. It turns 100 years, and I would love to do nothing more than honor that flag at the grand opening of the school with a good community day of food and fun and picnics and speakers and seminars and music at the campus. So that's what we're pushing to right now. So anyone who wants to donate to that, they can get on the Cash App and donate at $FDMG School. I repeat, $FDMG School. If you want to mail in a check or money order, you can make that payable to the FDMG Academy and send that to P.O. Box 9634. I repeat, P.O. Box 9634, Wilmington, Delaware, 19809. That's how you can donate. And we get plenty of donations. It's just that the amounts are low, and that's what makes it sometimes a little troublesome to get to the goal that we're trying to reach. But we get them every day, hundreds of them from all over the world. In fact, I think that this school might be the first school ever purchased in American history, and I have to do the research, but I think we might be the first school ever purchased in American history where black people from every continent contributed to the purchase. We've received money. We've gotten money from almost every African country. We've gotten money from almost every Caribbean island. We've gotten money from every United State. We've gotten money from Europe, France, Paris. We've gotten money from Canada. Did we get any donation from Australia? I need to check the books, but I think we got donations from Australia as well. So there's no black community in the world that did not play a hand in purchasing this school. And I want to keep that going. So when we open the school, I want our teaching staff to be so diverse that we have a teacher there that represents every continent. And in the long run, I want to have a teacher there representing every country that black people come from. So your son can say, my math teacher is from Ghana, my English teacher is from Jamaica, my science teacher is from Canada, my African language teacher is from South Africa, my gym teacher is from North Philly. You understand? So because it's important that we reach out and understand other African countries and other African cultures and other African lifestyles, because sometimes we fall into the stereotype that's perpetuated by gangster rap music that represents black men and black women in a particular light, and I don't like it, because unfortunately I think we as black people will also make history as being the only race in the world who participated in the destruction of their own public image. When the European Jews were being targeted by Adolf Hitler, you didn't see them making music, you understand, to actually push the stereotype that Hitler made about them. You didn't see them making movies to push the stereotype that Hitler made about us. But when I look at our gangster rappers and I look at our television film producers, I see nothing but the stereotypes white people created being put on steroids by us. Coonery.
Yeah, indeed.
We can't continue to perpetuate ignorance.
Oh my goodness.
When you already know that there's certain things that's been placed upon us as a people, and this is a stereotype in which they say, I've always been told that I got to go against what they say. So if it's the case in which they say, oh, well, black people sleep too much, then, I mean, I only get about 4 or 5 hours of sleep since the time I I was a child. If they say that the only thing that we know how to do is
basketball,
football,
football.
play sports. No, I did all sports, but at the same time, I had to push myself to know over 5 different languages.
Absolutely.
And to, become a master of whatever it is that I decided to get myself involved in. And I'm saying that to say every person who considers themselves of this black diaspora, of this black culture, this black race, have to be able to say that all the ignorance that people end up placing upon us to say that this is who you are, we got to prove them wrong.
We got to prove them wrong. and more importantly, we don't have to prove them wrong for their benefit. We have to prove them wrong for our benefit.
Correct.
One thing black people have to stop doing, I see too much of this, especially within the conscious community, black conscious movement. When we learn something or unlearn something, we want to run out and convince white people to believe what we know to be true. Why would a white person accept the reality that Jesus Christ is black? How does that benefit white folks? How does that push their worldview? How does that perpetuate their agenda? It doesn't. We are supposed to be internalizing the truth of ourselves, not trying to convince your enemy of that truth. And the reason black people spend so much time trying to convince white people, of our reality and our greatness is because we're still trying to be accepted by white folks. See, if I don't need your approval, I don't care what you think about me. You understand? It absolutely does not matter to me. But if I'm going out of my way to try to convince you that I'm not a half monkey, you understand, and that my brain works as well as yours, and I can do more than play football and basketball, if I'm trying to convince you, then that is actually putting you in a superior position to me, because it says I need that person's approval before I can continue to move forward. We have to get out of that and become unapologetically African, where we be who we want to be, where we be, because we are who we are.
No doubt. So that gives me, that brings up this question, right? What exactly, because a lot of people even within the conscious community, they get this wrong. And I'm not going to say they get it wrong for my sake, but I'm saying they get it wrong in regards to the totality of the answer of this question. What is the true definition of blackness?
I would use Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad's definition. And of course, we remember him the day before yesterday, February 17th, or 3 days ago, was the day that he died. 2001, founder of the New Black Panther Party. And Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad said that blackness was color, consciousness, culture, and a connection to the great divine creator. And that's how I look at it. See, when black people say, people say that it's just color that makes us different. Other than that, we're all the same. We got it so wrong. This color is a chemical. Melanin is a chemical. It is an energy. And that energy directly connects us to carbon, universal energy, and to God. So when people talk about who are the chosen people, right? Is it the Hebrews? Is it the Muslims? Is it the Christians? It's none of them. Being chosen has nothing to do with the religion you profess. Being chosen has to do with the order in which God created you. As the Bible says, blessed be the firstborn child. The African man and woman are the firstborn child of the Creator. We are the only people on earth whose DNA comes directly from God, because God had to make us first before we can make everyone else. We are the chosen people. It has nothing to do with a religion. Africans are the chosen ones.
The original people.
The original people.
So that brings me to the next question, which is, and I get this from being on the live the other day, where it was a lot of people who I noticed that even though while professing that we stand with black unity, based off of the nationality or perhaps the language that some of us use or was raised to use, I saw a division.
Okay.
And I'm referring specifically to the separation between those who call themselves Latinos and those who call themselves Africans.
Okay.
Can you tell me what's your position on that? Only because You know, I come from a Dominican Haitian background where even growing up when I was in school, you know, I would be the one that they call on and say, well, say the numbers in Spanish or say this, and I would have to help the teacher as we went along. But no matter what island my father comes from, I'm 100% black, and if the Hispaniola island doesn't, you know, stamp that as far as being the first black republic twice, I don't know what does.
Right. In order to understand that confusion, you have to understand the way in which racism operated in the islands versus America. In America, it was very simple. You were either black or you were white, right?
Facts.
Now, they would refer to those of us who were of mixed race as mulatto, but you were still amongst the blacks. You follow? So it was not a separate political distinction. It was a social distinction only. You see? So in America, whether you light or dark or wavy hair, nappy hair, you black. In the Caribbean, it's different. In the Caribbean, they had mulatto, octoroon, quadroon. They had about 8 different racial categories. So literally, you and her could be a shade apart.
Right.
And that difference in that shade would determine whether you could work in a government office or she could not. It would determine whether you could go to the university or she could not. It would determine whether you could live in this particular housing area or she could not. So in the Caribbean islands, skin color became extremely important as a form of consciousness because your shade dictated how far you could go in life. And in many islands, it still does.
Okay.
So when we look at the Afro-Latino or the Afro-Cuban or the Afro-Dominican, and for many of them, a tendency to disidentify from being African, that has a strong historical legacy. Because what in essence they're saying is, I might know I'm black. Because after all, my religion is Santeria. That come from Africa. My drums come from Africa. My music come from, how the hell I'm not African, but everything I do, including my food, is African. You see. But to claim that doesn't give me no advantage. So I'm going to claim Latino, which is not a race, it's a culture. I'm going to claim being Puerto Rican, which is a nationality. And by the way, nothing wrong with claiming Latino or Puerto Rican, because that's a nationality in a race, in a culture. But what is your race? Your race is African. But when you live in a reality where skin color dictates opportunity, you see, I want to be as far away from blackness as possible, because after all, isn't that a badge of shame? And is that not why we suffer in the first place? So a lot of light-skinned Africans in the islands would rather ignore their Africanity and flat out deny it so they get opportunities. So let's look at the flip side of that. That means what? The minute we get ourselves together and we get our economic and political situation in order, the same people who claim they're not African will be fighting to be African again. The problem is we are losing, and nobody wants to be part of a losing team. Imagine if you want to go play football, right? Do you find a team with the 0-12 record, or you try to join the team with the 12-0? I want to be with the winners. I don't be with the losers. And right now we are losing as a people. So anybody who can get away with acting like they're not black is going to do it, including African Americans who have a history of passing for white when they look light enough, you see. But the minute we give our people something to be proud of, the Puerto Ricans will run back to being African. The Dominicans will run back to being African. You can't expect people to be loyal to the community while the community is down on one knee. We have to stand first.